When I was 9 years old, my father made me a promise. It wasn't written on paper. It wasn't announced to the world. But it lived quietly between us like something sacred. Every Sunday evening, he would sit at the kitchen table with a small blue notebook. While I did my homework, he would write numbers carefully, line by line. "That," he once said, tapping the notebook, "is your future." I didn't fully understand what he meant back then. I just knew it made him smile. A simple life, big dreams. We weren't rich. We lived in a modest suburban home in the Midwest. Beige walls, old furniture, and a backyard that flooded every spring. But my parents believed in education. My mom used to say, "Knowledge is the one thing nobody can steal from you." She passed away when I was 11. Cancer doesn't care about promises. After the funeral, the house felt hollow. My father tried to be strong, but grief changed him. The notebook disappeared into a drawer. Still, I believed the promise was safe, because it was mine. The college fund? When I turned 14, I finally understood. One night, my dad sat me down and told me about the college fund. "Your mom and I started it when you were born," he said. "It's not huge, but it's enough to give you a real start." My chest filled with something warm. Hope, maybe. From that day on, everything I did was for college. I studied harder. I skipped parties. I dreamed bigger. College wasn't just school to me. It was freedom. Then Linda arrived. 3 years later, my father met Linda. She was polished, confident, and always smiling. The kind of woman who made people feel slightly nervous without knowing why. She had a son named Ethan. He was loud where I was quiet. Entitled where I was careful. Average where I worked relentlessly. Linda moved in fast. Suddenly, the house wasn't quiet anymore. The shift. At first, nothing seemed wrong. But little things changed. Ethan got a new laptop. I was told to make mine last. Ethan's mistakes were laughed off. Mine were questioned. And the notebook? I hadn't seen it in years. A warning I ignored. One evening, I overheard Linda talking to my father. "She'll figure it out," Linda said casually. "She's smart. Ethan needs more support." I froze in the hallway. Something felt off, Grisham, but I told myself I was imagining things. After all, that college fund was promised. Right? End of part 1, cliffhanger. I didn't know it then. But that night was the beginning of the end. Because promises are fragile things. And the people closest to you are often the ones who break them. I found out about the college fund on a completely ordinary Tuesday. No argument. No warning. Just a piece of paper that changed everything. The envelope. I had come home early from school. The house was quiet, too quiet. On the kitchen counter, there was an envelope. My name wasn't on it. But inside were bank statements. I didn't mean to look, but the numbers caught my eye. And then my heart dropped. Something was missing. The account balance was wrong. Very wrong. The college fund. My college fund was almost empty. I stood there, staring at the paper, trying to convince myself I was misunderstanding it. Maybe money had been moved temporarily. Maybe there was another account. I checked the dates. Transfers. Large ones. All recent. Confrontation. When Linda came home, I was still sitting at the table. The papers were laid out in front of me. She didn't look surprised. Not even a little. "Where's the money?" I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. Linda sighed like I had inconvenienced her. "We used it," she said. "Used it?" My ears rang. "Used it? How?" I asked. "For Ethan's college," she replied. "As a loan, we'll figure something out later." Loan. That word felt like an insult. "That money was for me," I said. Linda crossed her arms. "You're smart," she said flatly. "You'll get scholarships." "Ethan isn't like that." My father's silence. I looked at my dad. He was standing in the doorway. Quiet, avoiding my eyes. "Dad?" I said. He didn't answer right away. Then finally, it seemed like the best option at the time. That hurt more than Linda's words. The truth hits. "So, you decided my future was optional?" I asked. Linda rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. I felt something break inside me. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about being chosen, and realizing I never was. Ethan's reaction. Ethan walked in halfway through. He glanced at the papers, smirked. "Relax," he said. "I'll pay it back someday." Someday. I stared at him and realized something terrifying. Nobody in this room thought this was wrong. The breakdown. That night, I locked myself in my room. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just sat on the floor, hugging my knees, trying to understand how easily a promise could disappear. The future I had worked toward was gone. Not because I failed, but because someone decided I didn't need it as much. A choice. I didn't sleep. By morning, my tears were gone. In their place was something else. Quiet, heavy, determined. If they thought taking my college fund meant taking my future, they were wrong. That was the night I stopped asking for permission. And the morning, I started planning my revenge. Not with anger, but with success. After the college fund was gone, I stopped talking. Not because I had nothing to say, but because no one was listening. At the dinner table, I became invisible. And for the first time in my life, I realized something important. If I wanted a future, I was going to have to build it alone. No backup plan. I didn't have a safety net anymore. No savings. No family support. No second chances. Every college dream now came with a price tag I couldn't afford. So I did the only thing I could do. I worked. First job. I got a part-time job at a grocery store. Minimum wage. Long hours. I stood on my feet after school, smiling at customers, while my feet ached and my heart felt heavier than ever. Every paycheck was small, but every dollar meant I wasn't helpless. Late nights. At night, when the house was quiet, I sat at my desk, laptop open, coffee cold. I searched for scholarships like my life depended on it. Because it did. Essay after essay. Application after application. I wrote about leadership, resilience, adversity, but I never wrote the whole truth. I didn't want pity. I wanted opportunity. Rejection letters. They came fast. "We regret to inform you." Again and again. Each rejection felt personal, like the world was confirming what my family already believed. That I'd figure it out or fail quietly. The moment that changed me. One night, after another rejection, I almost quit. I stared at my screen and whispered, "Maybe they're right." And then something inside me snapped. Not in anger, in clarity. If nobody believed in me, then believing in myself had to be enough. I got better. I rewrote my essays. I stayed up later. Woke up earlier. I studied smarter, not harder. I learned how to tell my story without sounding broken, without sounding angry. Just honest. Silence at home. Linda didn't ask what I was doing. She assumed I was handling it. My father didn't ask either. Silence had become our language. And somehow, that silence made me stronger. A new version of me. By the end of that year, I wasn't the same girl anymore. I was tired, but focused. Scared, but steady. I wasn't waiting for someone to save me. I was saving myself. I didn't know it yet, but one email was coming. And when it arrived, everything would change. Waiting is harder than failure. After months of applications, my life became a cycle of checking my phone and pretending I wasn't disappointed. Every morning I woke up hoping. Every night I went to sleep bracing myself. Nothing came. Life on pause. School, work, applications. Over and over again. People around me talked about prom, parties, summer plans. I talked about deadlines. The future felt close, and impossibly far at the same time. Home felt different. At home, college was no longer a topic. Linda acted like the problem had solved itself. "You're managing," she'd say casually. Ethan talked nonstop about his campus life. His dorm, his friends, his freedom. I listened. Quietly. The day it happened. It was a Thursday. I was working the evening shift at the grocery store. The store was loud, carts, voices, scanners beeping. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it. The subject line. I stepped into the break room and pulled out my phone. One word stopped me cold. "Congratulations." My hands started shaking. I didn't open the email right away. I just stared at the screen, afraid it might disappear. The truth on the screen. When I finally opened it, the words blurred together. Full tuition, housing, books, a full academic scholarship to a top-tier university. I read it 3 times before it felt real. The breakdown. I sat down, and for the first time in months, I cried. Not from pain, from relief, from knowing that I hadn't been wrong to keep going. Telling the family, that night I told them at dinner. "I got a scholarship," I said. Linda smiled politely. "That's nice," she said. Ethan laughed. "Guess you got lucky." My father nodded. "I'm proud of you." But his voice was quiet. Something shifted. Their reactions didn't hurt me, because something inside me had already changed. I didn't need approval anymore. I had proof. Packing to leave. The next few weeks were a blur. Paperwork. Forms. Packing. I bought what I could with my savings. No one offered help. And that was okay. Walking out the door. The morning I left, I stood in the doorway with one suitcase. Linda said, "Take care of yourself." Ethan was still asleep. My father hugged me, briefly, and then I walked out. As the door closed behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom.